Good morning, colleagues. So I'm going to be sharing with you um, some of the analysis that we're doing in BIS with the data that we have available. So my topic is on the navigating the metrics analysis of the lagging and leading indicators. We'll be looking at the trends that we have at rates and throughput rates, graduation rates, success rates, and many other metrics. So I'm with the Business Intelligence Services Unit. This is how the team looks like. We've got data engineers, data scientists, institutional researchers, the HEMIS team, and the CRIM team. So we report to DVC Academic. These are some of the partners that we work with. You'll notice that we work with the data owners like your AISU, that's the Academic Information Systems Unit. They handle and manage the students' data. Then we've got the ICT, they support us with the infrastructure, as well as the HRIS, the responsible for the staff data. So anything that is coming through to BIS, if there are discrepancies, if the data is not correct, we have to send it back to the partners to fix it. Let's look at some trends. So some in the higher education. So this is I took it from one of the reports that the Department of Higher Education published. This is looking at the data between 2010 to 2021. So just some trend analysis of the enrollment numbers in the public and the private higher education space. But we can see that there's these numbers there. There's been a growth in the general numbers of our students coming into the tertiary education. Again, some of these numbers, if we look at some of the large universities that has got more students, this is looking at both postgraduate students and undergraduate students. So as vets, we are sitting at around 42,000 students, so for both UG and PG. So this data is audited as of 2021. If you look at enrollments by gender, we can see that there's been some numbers that the female students are more than the male students in general. So this is again, it's a national picture. So it's inclusive of all the universities that we have in South Africa. Is there an echo? I think there's an, am I fluent? Is the echo coming from the mic? Eh? It's fine. I feel there's an echo. Okay. So colleagues, these reports, they are available on, there are some published reports that the department makes available. And also, if you look at the Stellenbosch website, they've got some nice, very dashboards that has got these numbers and reports as well from their HEMIS portal. So what is the sort of the average undergraduate success rates as per this report? You notice that the success rates, they are sort of sitting in the 80% range. I think this is what Dr. Erich shared as well, that the success rates in the higher education space or even EdVets, they're above 80%. But if you start to break it down by course, school, faculty, then you see some, deviations. But I think generally the students, they do pass the modules or courses, but the problem that we're having is they staying longer in the system. That's why our throughput rates are very low. Again, I think if you look at the success rate of the white students and the colored, the Indian students, it's above 90%. And the African students is around 84%. I'm going to then just share some slides on the success rates as per the sort of the Stellenbosch website. Again, if you look at by year, the success rates, there's been a drop from 2020 to 2021. This is again showing the success rates for all the universities that we have in South Africa. You break it down by gender. You can also break it down by race. You notice that the female students, they do have their success rates is higher as compared to the male students. It's actually high by at least 5% more. Then I've looked at the trend analysis for these 5 universities. If you look at WITS, this has been our success rate for the past 6 or so years as of the HEMIS audited data. Again, by gender, this has been the success rate. So I think the female students, they really actually do perform quite well, and over the years, it's been over the 8% as compared to the male students. So there's somewhere I'm going with this story. So we've looked at the enrollment numbers, at the composition of the male and the female students. We now looking at the success rates between the male and the female students. We can also do it by race as well. This is the average graduation rates as per this report. I think undergraduate students, this is where they look at the number of students who qualified against the total enrollments. Okay. All right, so this is VET's numbers as of 2023. I think the student headcount enrollments, we're sitting at around 42,000 students. So that's both undergraduate and postgraduate students. We can break it into female. We've got at least 60% of those students are female students and 72% are African students. Can look at the academic staff data. Total number of full-time permanent academic employees, we are sitting at least 1,200. Again, 51% of that number is female. Then the rankings and research data, as well as the official languages as per the, I think this was the study that was done by institutional research. Okay, so this slide, again, it just shows the employability of the graduates as per the Stats SA report. We're looking at, they're saying there over the past 10 years, the unemployment rate for women have been higher than men, right? The female unemployment rate increased from that 27% to 35%. So if you notice that we've seen that the general composition of our student population is, we've got more female students. Their success rate is also pretty much high. Their throughput rates is also high as compared to the male students. But if you look at the employment status or the employability, we start to notice that their unemployment rate has been increasing over the past couple of 5 or so years. I've just broken it down. So I think again, this is from that report where they're saying that the unofficial unemployment rates of women was 10.7% in Q2 of 2024 versus the 8.3% of their male counterparts. So I've just defined what are lagging and leading indicators. So we do have got a dashboard that we have developed. I'll show you some clips of the dashboard. So the lagging indicators, these are metrics that reflect the outcomes of actions. So things like your graduation rates, throughput rates, retention rates, those will be your lagging indicators. So they're saying here the purpose again is to sort of assess the effectiveness of the strategies. You have shared, Dr. Herrit, one of the slides that you spoke to a few lecturers. We had have improved their course pass rates, and you shared what they did to improve those course pass rates by at least 10%. The leading indicators will be your predictive measures that provide insights into the future. So if you look at the dashboard, so these dashboards are accessible via Oracle Analytics, and you can sort of get access through our BIS intranet. So what we have is under undergraduate lagging indicators, we've got decreased time to completion. So this is measuring the throughput rates. So ideally, we would want to sort of improve these percentages. Then we've got increased completion rates. We've broken it by gender, by race. We also look at high-performing students and many other things. Under leading indicators, these are leading indicators. We have increased the retention, increased progression. You notice that the retention rates, the progression rates, the success rates, they are pretty much good. They are high. But it's only the throughput rates that are worrying. So if you look at the enrollment numbers by faculty, we can see which faculty has got at least the highest numbers. This is purely your undergraduate students. So I've done it by faculty for the past 6 years or 7 years. I think what we're seeing there is the health sciences, humanities. Yeah, they have got large numbers. They've got large classes as well. It will be interesting to look at the student staff ratio for these faculties. Again, a very similar picture with the previous one that I showed you, where the enrollment numbers, we've got more female students. This is now the VITS numbers as compared to the male students. So I think every year we graduate at least 4,600 students. These are undergraduate numbers. These are graduation sort of looking at who is qualified. Our success rate, the UG, we sitting at around 85% last year. Slight improvements. Sometimes it declines. And yeah, so this has been the trend over the last 5 years. If we look at it by faculty, we can look at which faculty has the highest success rates. That's health sciences. Then we've got humanities. Then we've got engineering and built environment. So I think faculties can use this data just to sort of benchmark and look at whether there could be ways to improve some of these numbers. So on this slide, I've looked at mid-year pass rates. So this is as of 2024, 2023. You will notice that there's been some improvement here. These are mid-year pass rates. We have looked at semester 1 courses and some of the full-year courses that have got marks. We have looked at by faculty. I think humanities has been doing quite higher than the rest of the faculties in terms of their course pass rates. You can also, I think, try and understand this jump or this increase from 2022 to 2024, just to try and understand what happened here. So the throughput rates, this is for all full-time programs, undergraduate, year of study 1. So I've looked at the bachelor's and the professional degrees. So if we break down that throughput rate by program type, you'll notice that the rates for the bachelor's degree, they are sort of slightly higher than the professional degrees. So the professional degrees, these are the 4-year programs. The bachelor's are the 3-year programs. So we have broken down the throughput rates by faculty. So if you look at over the years, this has been the sort of the throughput rates. That's 35% now. We've broken it down by faculty. As you can see, the numbers there, they're quite interesting to look at. So I think that the cost pass rates that we have seen for humanities, they're probably translating into throughput. We have seen that the cost pass rates have been higher over the past years, and their throughput rates as well. It means their students are completing in minimum time. They've got most students that are completing in minimum time as compared to the rest of the faculties. It will be interesting to look at the N+1 and the N+2 as well. Yeah. The next slide looks at throughput rates by gender. Again, this is by gender. So the 2020 cohort, they had a 27% throughput rate as compared to the female students that had 41%. This has been the trend over the years. So I'm probably picking a trend or a problem. The next slide looks at what we refer to as high impact modules. So I've looked at those modules or courses that have got large classes, and some of these courses, they have got at least 100 students that failed that course in 2023. So we've done it by faculty. I think the first one is CLM faculty. So the size of this bubble is your success rate, is your pass rate, basically. So in here, we've included the number of students who have enrolled, failed, and passed. So the actual numbers, I've provided a table with those numbers. I've done it for CLM. So in the School of Accountants, these are some of the courses that had at least 100 students who failed that course. I think those who are in the School of Accountants will probably relate to these course codes. The next one, I think it is EBE. So EBE has got, in 2023, they had at least 6 courses. I think these are courses where a greater number of our students are failing. You might, I think you might have that high pass rate, but you also have quite a number of students who failed that course. This is science. Some of the chemistry courses, the maths courses, yeah, and their pass rates. So the next slide, I've just added in exclusions. So these are the students that were excluded, academic exclusion, this year, as of 2024. So it's either they didn't meet the mid-year requirement, and so EBE have got 130 students that were excluded. Humanities, 63 students. So I think some of the students, they appeal and they sort of come back or re-register. And we've got advisors within faculties who work or we help or assist some of these students who are struggling academically. Some of the work that we're doing in through the Office of BRS, sort of to build models and dashboards for the Student Success Project. We've got the governance frameworks. We follow the Student Success Framework. We just built with the monitoring and evaluation framework. So all this feeds into sort of to try and monitor the leading and lagging indicators to improve that 35% throughput rate. We've got technology in place, an integrated warehouse that makes it possible for us to pull those reports that I've shared with you. We built AI models for our undergraduate students or postgraduate students. We also engage with the faculties, administrators, to make sure that the processes of capturing marks on time and interventions are being followed. So in the center of that is AI modeling. We've got the people, the process, and the technology. So the three plays a very critical role in this type of work. And that work is governed by the governance framework. So this is the integration framework that makes it possible for us to have reliable, accurate data every morning. There's a lot of quality checks that are in place. Most of it is automated. We are able to sort of pick discrepancies and work with those partners that I've showed you earlier on. On top of all this framework, we have got quite a number of dashboards and reports that you as colleagues, stakeholders, you have access to in some form. And all this data we've built a very, it's governed by the security and privacy. So colleagues they have access to their faculty data or school data. We follow the student success framework. So the models that we build or develop, they are sort of coming in from this framework. We work very closely with advisors, student advisors, faculties, executives, assistant deans, to make sure that we building solutions that are useful. I think for those that you have seen this framework on some of the portals. Some of the dashboards that we have in place. So we have what you call this student persistent dashboard. This looks into this on undergraduate students. We also have one for postgraduate students. This is driven by predictive models. We look at least more than 20, 40 variables in there that can predict the probability of a student persisting. So advisors, they go in that system. They sort of use this report to help students who need the help. So our institutional research office is busy. They've worked on the monitoring and evaluation framework using the logic models. I think some of the work was presented at the recent Siaphumelela service workshop. So ideally is to measure the impact of some of the work that the schools advisors are doing in terms of supporting the students. This is how it looks like. We've got enough time for questions. So my job was just to share some numbers. What you do with those numbers, it's up to the faculties to go back and look at those numbers and discuss through with some of the colleagues. I think we have noticed that there is clearly a problem with some of the throughput rates for especially our male students in the adverts in the higher education space. It's something that even the Siaphumelela is trying to also to understand what's happening with the male students. And there is a problem with the sort of the employability or employment rates for female students or graduates who have completed. They are doing quite well. Success rate is good. Throughput rate is much better. And they just don't sort of participate in the sort of job space.
Thank you. Thank you so much, colleagues. Any questions from the floor? Fatima, there's a question on the, oh, you've got a question. Okay, please.
Sorry, just following on that last comment that you made, Innocent, in terms of student success. Or rather, I think that comment that you made does really make us consider what student success actually means. Does it It's not necessarily just academic performance, but also then the future employability in the workplace. And yeah, so I think that that is an important consideration. Just another question there that I wanted to ask. In terms of indicators which would suggest that we're performing well, the sense of belonging is increasingly becoming an indicator. And to what extent have we adopted that in our strategic plans going forward, or what are the measures and how are we assessing that?
Thanks, Fatima. So I think most of this work it lacks it lacks the sort of what's happening in the classroom. We hosted an imbizo some few months back to try and sort of bring academics into a room with the students and the support services. So we are trying to work around including the work that the academics are doing in the classroom, as well as sort of addressing the student needs. I think there's going to be a panel discussion with the students. We're going to hear more about some of the challenges that the students are facing. And most importantly, the work that Institutional Research Office does, conduct surveys to do a research on a specific aspect, or that can then give us more insights onto what's really happening. So for example, I can't tell you what's happening with the male students. All I can see is they're not performing well. Over the years, they have not been performing well. Their throughput rates is worrying. I can't tell you what's happening with the lower quantity of students, for example, but with the research and sort of more stakeholders included, then we'll be able to put up together a dashboard or a report that can sort of give some indicators of what's really happening.
Sorry, to your question, please.
So perhaps just a comment on something that you mentioned, and the important thing really is it's good to see the central tendencies, to see the numbers as we looked at them now. But that in itself doesn't really mean a thing until we actually go that next step to see, so what do we do about that? And so it's kind of interesting to look at central tendencies to get a broad understanding, but the real truth is in the dispersion. So, we need to remember that that central tendency is made up of a whole number of individuals. And so we need to start looking at those individuals making up the central tendency for us to be able to get the answers as to how to address issues that we identify. Thanks.
Thank you. There's a question online that May is going to read. And then any other questions? Do you have a question today? Okay, please go ahead.
Sorry, thanks. I think some of the questions have been answered by colleagues on the online space as well, where links were shared because people want to know about access. There was somebody, but there's another question that comes out as to this is valuable information and how often is it shared with the staff? And my question would be, if this can be translated into a language that will matter to students to be shared with them, we should take the opportunity. Are you taking the opportunity? And particularly because actually students do care. They do care about the society they're in and about contributing to that society as well. I think we have an assumption that they don't because of performance numbers, but there is a large amount of care, I think, on both sides, the staff and the students.
Yeah, I think, Harriet, we have to look at what as what are the next steps with some of these reports, and you will be able to share with the stakeholders. But the information is available on a daily basis. The information is updated, and most of our users, they have access to the portal through, if you go to our intranet, there is a form that you need to complete, and your line manager also needs to sign, then you'll be granted access to the portal or to the dashboards. But there's a lot of dashboards that we have built over the years. Staff data, I didn't even show it here. So lots of interesting trends there. But we always encourage colleagues to have access to some data, because that's how we then make decisions. That's how you change your sort of your learning approaches, and that's how you understand your students, basically, if you've got some tools with you.
There was another question online. Have you received any, what are the Poppy Act issues with regards to using this type of information, I guess, from staff and students?
I think our manager is worked quite extensively with the legal office, with Carol's office, the registrar's office, to make sure that the information that is showing there is protected. And if it's for sort of internal use, they are sort of steps or measures that we put in place to make sure that you receive the right data that you need. It could be anonymized, it could be sort of standardized, but in terms of POP we've got that form that I spoke about. It's got all the POP sort of policies in place. So we've been in existence for years. Let me put it that way. So we kind of followed all the processes to make sure the data is secure. It doesn't land on the sort of the wrong sort of person, or it's been used for to do harm to the student, for example. That's why even our dashboards, the students that don't have access, not everyone has access within the schools, within the faculties. So yeah, we follow those steps.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And another question there? Sorry, there was another question there. Nes, did you have a question? Was that answered? Okay, thanks. Please go ahead, ma'am. There's a, yeah.
I want to find out, have you done any analysis into throughput and pass rate based on hunger, like the number of students who are on campus hungry, the number of students who have precarious accommodation, the number of students with challenges with access to digital devices? Do you have that sort of data, and the issues of language as well, how students who are non.
So some of the data points we don't have access to them. For example, the food program. I know Corona is trying to make that data available, but we can only use what we have in the warehouse. For example, we have got residence data. We can tell you the throughput rates of resident students versus non-res students. We have funding data, NSFAS data. We can tell you all that. But some things like, hunger, we don't have those data points. So we haven't done anything in that space.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other question? Thank you so much, Mr. Mamvura, for your time and your insights.